Monday Night Raw is a really bad wrestling show. I mean, it's just bad. What's even worse than being boring is being boring and repetitive. This show is repetitive. We haven't made it. This thing is constipated. That's how bad this show is. It's like this joint is not moving. Like the organs and everything in this show just don't move. It's been the same since like March. All right. So this show sucks. And I really could leave it right there, but what's the fun in that? So your boy MagMongoSlade here, talking about the August the 14th episode of Monday Night Raw, which begins and ends like every episode of Monday Night Raw. It's become like Tom and Jerry, like Looney Tunes. Like as soon as you see Sylvester, you know he's never going to catch the Tweety Bird. So you might as well just enjoy how he manages to trip over himself and make himself look silly this week. Because Finn Balor is once again in the Wile E. Coyote suit, where he tries to have a scheme and it blows up in his face, and then at the end he's somehow still credible, worse than ever because the crowd didn't care. But let's talk about this episode of Raw. But first, we got to do news and notes. First note, some illegal papers that was filed by WWE. I don't know what this motion is actually called, but it's basically denying each of the claims made by MLW. It is another repetitive document. I tried to read it. It's just WWE denies, but they did admit to one point, which is that Stephanie McMahon met with a Tubi executive in August of 2021, but they claim it was not to pressure them to prevent MLW from being on the network. So this is from WWE's filing. It says, this is from Fightful. WWE admits that on or about August 9th, 2021, Stephanie McMahon spoke with Tubi executive. WWE denies the allegations in the second, third, and fourth sentences of paragraph 100, the allegations in the fifth sentence of paragraph 100, and it just continues with that kind of WWE lacks knowledge and information based off this, they lack knowledge and information based off that, or whatever. So they smartly reminded everybody what the hell MLW said. So it says MLW's filing, which is the accusation that Stephanie McMahon pressured some kind of Tubi executive. It says, on or about August 9th, 2021, WWE executive Stephanie McMahon spoke with a Tubi executive located in California about the license agreement. Ms. McMahon initially pressured the Tubi executive to deny MLW a time slot that will compete head-to-head with WWE's NXT programs on Tuesday nights. But Ms. McMahon ultimately pressured the Tubi executive and other senior executives at Fox to terminate the agreement in its entirety. WWE threatened Tubi's affiliate Fox that it could lose WWE's business or pervert content if Tubi did not acquiesce to WWE's demand and terminate its agreement with MLW. Indeed, as noted by an industry publication, WWE had substantial leverage over Fox because Fox was competing with another network for better WWE programming at the same time that WWE was pressuring Tubi to cancel the licensing agreement. It says on August the 9th, the night before planned press release about the Tubi MLW deal, as a result of WWE's pressure and interference, MLW received a letter purporting to unilaterally terminate the license agreement. Thus, with wanton, reckless disregard for MLW's rights and the antitrust laws, WWE intentionally and unlawfully interfered with the performance of license agreement and procured its termination, with WWE purposefully directing its communications to Tubi in California in order to disrupt MLW's relationship with Tubi to deprive MLW of access to and competition in major national media markets. So they're claiming that whatever this meeting was between Stephanie McMahon and a Tubi executive, that it was about MLW and it was about pressuring MLW. Now, this is all very, very interesting stuff here, because people want to know what the hell that executive was talking to Stephanie about. You know, what is the nature of their conversation? Because MLW is making a claim that they have to produce some kind of evidence for. I know most people are kind of just saying, oh, well, it's very suspicious, and it is. But just because you're around when a dead body appears doesn't mean that you killed this person. So we don't know what the nature of their conversation was. So until we figure that part out, all of this is still basically accusations. But I do want to know what the content of their conversation was. Now, so at some point last week, Live Nation, aka Ticketmaster, they objected to MLW trying to get 22 years of documentation between themselves and WWE, assuming that WWE has made threats to Ticketmaster or whoever, even though Ticketmaster itself is basically a monopoly. So that's a very interesting scenario to be in, isn't it? That Ticketmaster, which has been under attack for being a monopoly, is now supposedly going to turn over at least maybe 10 to 15 years of information. Who knows how much a judge may say they have to actually dig up, of communications between them and WWE, which may have threats in there, which may not have threats in there. We don't know. But ultimately, MLW is making a claim that they have the ability to search for evidence for. So they basically get to go on a fishing expedition. But basically, Ticketmaster is claiming that the everything is too broad and is too burdensome to dig up all of these records, and it's very expensive. And since they're not really a party to this whole thing, they object to even being a part of it. Which there's going to be a lot of people who are probably going to file some form of objection, especially if the MLW wants them to dig up years and years and years of records. So there's probably going to be a lot of people if this thing makes it to trial, which Jerry McDevitt says it's going to last like 5 years. And looking at the prospectus, it probably will last 5 years. This whole thing is going to be pretty ugly. Let's say, assuming it goes to trial, they're probably going to end up calling Wrestling Observer Newsletter, like Meltzer and all Alvarez and all these people to court, because is it true that you wrote in your dirt sheet that Triple H stopped ROH from doing a show with yada yada yada? Yes, no, blah blah blah. Then they got to call somebody from Ring of Honor. Then they have to call somebody from Madison Square Garden, and it's gonna be a bunch of hoopla. It's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff. At this point, like I said, I think I've said this for a little while now, that MLW is basically fishing for a settlement. And that's pretty much what they're angling for, is to get more money out of this thing than they could have made on their own. But I don't see why WWE should settle, especially if they didn't do anything. I know it's, costly legal case and all this kind of stuff, and you want to get this stuff out of the way and get it off the books. And companies don't have the same compunction as individuals. Individuals are worried about their reputation and what will people think if I pay some money out and all this kind of stuff. But when you're in business and money will solve the problem, most people will just say, spend the money, solve the problem, and call it a day. And that's what MLW is basically looking for here. Now, does that mean that Stephanie McMahon did something wrong? No. Does it mean that Stephanie McMahon didn't do anything wrong? No. But it just means that it's clear that MLW is getting their information from somewhere, and without asking whether their information is credible or not, we're looking at their information and basically saying that they're making an accusation that clearly at the time they didn't have any evidence for, and now that they're looking for the evidence, that's what discovery is they're looking for evidence of some accusations. And the judge says, okay, you can go look for this evidence, but you got to actually dig through it. And now Ticketmaster doesn't want to turn this information over. And this stuff is going to be kind of important to their case. It's not the whole case. Clearly, if the judge rules in Ticketmaster's favor, then they'll probably limit the scope of what they're looking for to recent years. Especially MLW probably want to go back to its creation, which was in 2002. And I think that's what MLW is claiming. They probably won't make them go back that far. They probably make them go back 10 years or something like that. But on that note, MLW has never been a company big enough to run major arenas across the country, because if they could, they would. And the argument is, well, WWE has stopped them. It's like, but other companies also run these major arenas. Like, it literally doesn't make sense. So even with the argument that they're making about Tubi is like the Access TV show that they have runs neck and neck. Well, it was supposed to run neck and neck with NXT. And now they put Access put it on at 10 o'clock when it was on Access TV. It was on TV at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays. Tubi could have done the exact same thing. So the argument that Tubi nixed the entire deal over this when they could have just changed the time frame, and since it's a streaming service, it wouldn't have made much difference with NXT in the first place. It's just an argument to have, I guess. But it would explain why Stephanie's not around, because she's being implicated in this lawsuit, and Vince hired, he paid his money out, and basically he's done his deeds and he's done with it. But Stephanie's still wrapped up in this whole thing. So maybe she'll come back once this is all tied up, but who knows how long that'll take. Again, people are talking about this thing is going to be 5 years or whatever. So MLW, they got a +1 because they actually got WWE to agree that Stephanie McMahon did talk to Tubi. But what was the nature of their conversations? Well, that's what Discovery is about. They're probably going to get to see the emails, what phone records, stuff like this, to see when did Stephanie meet with this Tubi executive? What was the nature of their business call? Or what was the nature of their communications up to that point? Did she ever mention MLW, like in an email or something like that? That stuff might have to come out from direct evidence, which means that somebody have to sit on the stand and be asked a question. If she's stupid enough to put in an email, hey, get rid of MLW, then this is a slam dunk case. They should have settled it a long time ago. But if she's smarter than that, and she basically wanted to talk about business opportunities or whatever, and, who knows? But there might have been some other things like WWE probably being asked to produce a show for Tubi or other content for Tubi or whatever. And that's what she went to talk to them for. So, but we don't know. We don't know the nature of their conversations quite yet. And with other companies being tied up in this thing, it's going to be a really long process, because you have other companies that now have to produce documentation, and that's going to take time. That's going to take some real time here, and it's going to take a really long time to sort through all that stuff. And then, of course, WWE is going to have to respond to some things that are going to be written. Who knows what MLW may leak to the press, because they tend to do that kind of stuff. I mean, the concussion lawsuit, they did that too. That's where you got the Ashley Massaro letter that was leaked to the internet in order to try to push WWE to settle, but they didn't. And it just kind of ended up being a strange part of a concussion lawsuit that had something to do with, oh yeah, there was a female wrestler that was raped, but this is totally not about her being raped. This is totally about CTE. And people are kind of like, wait a minute. If she really was raped, she should be the one suing. And she should be suing for, discrimination. She should be suing the government. She should be suing all kinds of people. Why is this a part of a concussion lawsuit? Well, because they were trying to get WWE to settle. And you can see that MLW is probably going to be doing the same thing as they go through documents. They're probably going to look for things that are somewhat incriminating or can be misconstrued to be incriminating, much like Stephanie McMahon did have a conversation with a Tubi executive. We don't know the nature of their conversation, but we can assume that we're right. And a lot of people, because they're low IQ, they do believe that. They do look at this thing and say, well, Stephanie did talk to somebody in Tubi, and it's clearly because they wanted to stop MLW, without thinking about how did she even know about that? We don't know. We don't even know what she knew about the nature of their relationship. Tubi may have contacted her, as far as we know. So we don't know what the nature of their conversation was, who contacted who first. Was it a business opportunity? Was it social? We don't know. All right. So that's one thing. Another thing to talk about when it comes to news and notes, Edge's trainer, Ron Hutchinson, comes out and says that he believes that Edge will be wrestling his very last match on SmackDown this Friday. Now, because the show is Friday and I wouldn't do my SmackDown review until the day of the show. The only opportunity I'm supposed to have to talk about this is today. So, or I'm going to talk about it in the live stream, which I probably won't. All right, so this is what he said. He says, this is from a conversation he had with Wrestling Observer Radio. Oh, no, this is Meltzer talking. Meltzer says, quote, Ron Hutchinson, who is Edge's trainer and has known Edge for 30 years, he basically said this is Edge's last match. They certainly did not build it up like that, but that was interesting where he said it's most likely Edge's last match. Oh, probably and likely. Oh, boy. I think the idea was that Edge thought maybe SummerSlam was going to be in Toronto, and we was hoping for that. Then that would have been where he would retire, because he wants to retire in Toronto. And this is the year he was talking about retiring, for real. The second retirement. This is the last Toronto show for a while. I mean, there'll be another one, so I don't know if this is the retirement. They're not billing it as such, but his trainer said this is probably his last match. The rule of LY. If it has LY at the end, raise your eyebrow and take it with a grain of salt. Let's say that Edge has his very last match on an episode of SmackDown in the middle of August 2023 with no build-up whatsoever, no big WrestleMania goodbye, and it needs to be done in Toronto because that's where Edge wants to do it. I think you could talk Edge into one last match at WrestleMania. I think you probably could. So I do believe this probably will be his last year, but year can mean anything. Year could be he's not working the whole year next year. It could be that he's going to work this 1 year, and then maybe he'll do select dates next year, and then that's it. He's not going to work the whole year. So when somebody says, they're going to do a year, but let's say that it is. Let's, for the sake of argument, let's claim that this is going to be the last match for Edge. It's clearly not the right opponent. I know Sheamus is a friend of his, but if this is going to be Edge's last match, it really should be with John Cena. If you're going to write the WrestleMania goodbye for pretty much anybody, if you're from the sort of ruthless aggression era, if you're Edge or Orton, and I heard Orton is on his last legs too, the last match should be Cena. But the thing is, who should Cena's last opponent could be if Edge is about to go and Orton is about to go and Cena's not done? Who could Cena's last opponent be? It has to be somebody from the future then, right? If it can't be somebody from the past, it has to be somebody from the future. So I can see them, maybe I believe personally that this is probably going to start a feud between Edge and Sheamus. That's kind of where my mind is on this. And I don't think it's going to be Edge's last match. And I think they're going to end up working for a little while. But I do think that he probably will have his last match at WrestleMania 40, where he's going to, have it his own way. And it probably will be his final match against somebody that he really is friends with, that he has, faced a long time. And it probably will be John Cena. If they're smart, it will be Edge, John Cena one more time. And then maybe you let Edge win that match because he hasn't beat John Cena that many times. So, but then again, maybe not, because Cena lost to Austin Theory. So maybe Edge needs to take the pin in the middle of the ring one more time for old John. But I definitely think that this should not be his last match. I don't know if Sheamus being the right opponent, it doesn't really wrap up his career the way that you think, unless he literally probably shouldn't wrestle anymore after wrestling Sheamus, which might be necessary because Sheamus is stiff. Then, yeah, but I don't think it'll be planned to be his last match, because I totally believe that if Edge was going to have his last match, they would promote it, and they would try to make some money off of it. And I don't think they would just let it sit out there like that, oh yeah, this could be his last match, blah, 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 blah. Because it's floating around the dirt sheets, I typically don't believe it. But you never can tell these days, right? All right, let's get into this putrid show. Judgment Day start the show. Oh my God. Oh. They talk about nothing. They're too smart to break up. Oh my God. Oh no. JD McDonough came out, say he doesn't mean any disrespect, called him the most dominant faction in the then said don't worry about his friendship with Finn Balor. Worry about Cody and Sammy. Damian Priest got mad. Said that they don't take orders from the... Then it turned into Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough. They had a decent match. I was actually surprised that the match was so decent. And because Sami Zayn's not a big guy, bobblehead JD McDonough didn't look so tiny, even though he looked very tiny later on. He looked very tiny standing in the ring with Damian Priest. It had Sami Zayn selling his Bursa elbow, even though it wasn't that bad this week. And he ended up winning the match, which, surprise, surprise, Finn Balor gets involved, and Finn Balor is Charlie Brown in WWE all of a sudden. He got punched in the face and his guy loses. So his goddamn distraction was ineffective. It meant nothing. Sami Zayn wins. JD McDonough loses. So you did a good job, Triple H, of really building up JD McDonough, making everybody feel like he's a threat. Good job. Excellent. Thumbs up. He does the job in his first real match. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Backstage, Damian Priest is complaining about Finn Balor. They're arguing about something. They're arguing because Damian Priest is like, why aren't you out there with us? And we should be friends. And Rhea Ripley's like, we don't have any killer instinct. What's going on? Oh, God. Who cares about the Judgment Day and their inner workings? They're arguing about dumb stuff. Then next, there was a vignette for Indy Hartwell, which featured Indy Hartwell talking about, not knowing who she is and tired of living with doubt, and she's here to live courageously. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so generic. This is awful. This was a really bad vignette. It told us nothing about Indy Hartwell or her character or her personality or anything. It was just who are you? And that's basically who it is. And then she got fed to Rhea Ripley immediately. So Rhea Ripley defeats Indy Hartwell with the Riptide. This match is a -1 because there was a headbutt in this match. Same thing with JD McDonough and Sami Zayn. Is that if a match features a headbutt, I immediately take a whole point off of it. I'm tired of looking at headbutts. Headbutts suck. They're the worst, one of the worst offensive moves in the world, outside of people who jump kick and forearm shiver rather than throw a punch or a kick. Headbutts 100% look fake every time. I have never seen a good looking headbutt that didn't revolve around somebody needing brain surgery. So it's the shits. But Rhea Ripley wins, which of course she was going to win. Of course, we're just happy that Rhea Ripley is feuding with girls. But Indy Hartwell, last time you saw her, she was the NXT Women's Champion. And I think she broke her leg. Then she promptly comes back, and in her first match, she loses to Rhea Ripley. Good job. Again, great job, man. And we were told that it was Vince burying all of the NXT talent. Nope, it ain't Vince. He ain't there. Vince got a new spine. He's probably out trying to use that joint, after he, after he bathed in the adrenochrome of his grandchildren or something like that. He's out here like Count Dracula with the mustache. He's out here trying to live life with his new spine. He ain't got time to bury Indy Hartwell. But apparently somebody does, because that's exactly what happened. You couldn't even put her in matches to build her up so that she'll look somewhat decent. Look, I don't even like Indy Hartwell, but for Christ's sake, she gets trucked by Rhea Ripley. I don't remember any substantial offense from Indy Hartwell at all. Candice LeRae attacked Rhea Ripley after the match, so she's next, apparently. Before the match, Indy Hartwell was hanging out backstage with Candice LeRae, and they were working out, blah, 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 blah. Raquel Rodriguez says, oh, go show the WWE Universe what you're made of, because I'm still not medically cleared. And they're really dragging this thing out between Rhea and Raquel, which is, for the better, because it's forcing the other women to step up. But it's keeping, at the same time, keeping Rhea strong, because she's just bulldozing everybody, which is fine. So Candice got pulled off of Rhea. Rhea and Candice are probably going to be next week or 2 weeks or something like that. But this all led to the big main event, because Judgment Day starts the show, they end the show, and they lose. Cody Rhodes, who cut a promo earlier about, basically nothing, except calling Dominic submissive, after saying that he respects and admires Finn Balor because he's been a leader everywhere. He ain't looking like a leader now. Anyway, they have the match. It felt like it was going on forever. The show felt like it was 17 hours. It felt like an AEW pay-per-view. It felt like it was just going on and on and on. Had some decent stuff in it, but it just felt like it was going on and on and on. I had no interest in this match because I knew Cody was in it. It's either going to be a disqualification or Cody was going to win, and Cody won. So there you go. Cody wins. And of course, you get more briefcase shenanigans. Because, Finn Balor, who again, Charlie Brown, you put the briefcase in the ring, put a chair in the ring or whatever, he gets his head stomped into it, he gets bounced off his noggin, he gets knocked out, pinned, and that's it. I mean, who cares? At this point, it's just not even a formula, it's a recipe at this point. Like, you can't even make an episode of Monday Night Raw without this shit in it now. It's like, when was the last time somebody tried to make macaroni and cheese without macaroni and cheese? Maybe chunks of cheese, maybe some milk or something like that. But it's a necessary component of macaroni and cheese. Maybe sometimes people will put shredded cheese in there. I've seen people put bacon bits on the top. Stop doing that. Definitely don't put anything green in it. But every episode of Monday Night Raw since fucking April has featured Judgment Day somewhere in the main event or cutting a promo saying the same shit and losing. It's just stupid. It's stupid. This is the worst shit. I don't care if they beat up Cody after the match. It doesn't matter. They lost again. And it's always Finn Balor. Which brings me to the point of Kurt Angle talking about Finn Balor. So Kurt Angle, on the subject of Finn Balor on his podcast, says, it would have been nice if they would have given him this world title. I think he's really over, incredibly athletic. He has a lot of charisma. This kid, if WWE doesn't end up doing something with him, that's dramatic. I wouldn't blame him if he went off and went somewhere else. And this is, of course, coming on the heels of Finn Balor saying he wanted to work with the Elite again, whether in WWE or AEW, it doesn't matter where. But he wants to work with those guys again. And that led to a lot of people, even though I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. But people are starting to really notice that WWE is like really shitting on Finn Balor. They wrote this entire 7-year Odyssey story about him and Seth Rollins. It seemed to be built up to him destroying Seth Rollins in one place or another and winning the title, even if he got, dicked around by his boy. And then they had him lose. And he Charlie Browned himself out of that. He was Wile E. Coyote. His Acme plan blew up in his face. And he just moved on from that. His obsession is kind of over now, which is weird. Very weird. But now we're in this position where people are starting to notice. Like, he's been here for a long time. He's been in WWE, 7 years? 7 years. And he has not gotten much of anywhere. Like, this is probably the most exposure he's gotten in a long time with Judgment Day. And it's still him getting his face kicked in pretty much every week. And it's like, they don't think very highly of this guy. Outside of NXT, they don't think very highly of Finn Balor. So the question then becomes, why is he being continuously put in this position? Just put him outside the ring as a manager or something like that. This guy is no spring chicken. Kurt Angle called him kid because Kurt Angle's in his 50s and Finn Balor is, a little over 40. I think he's like 42 or 43 or something like that. So he got like a good maybe 15 years on him, maybe. Kurt Angle's close to 60, right? Like 55, 56 or something like that. So he's got, some years on him, so he called him kid, but, literally mean he's a kid. Yes, Finn Balor's a very in shape 40-year-old guy, but he's not the future. When he was on the cover of TV Guide and everybody thought he was going to be the future, this was in 2014, maybe? 2013, maybe? But that was a decade ago. Now we're sitting back looking at this thing and saying to ourselves, bro, Finn Balor is never going to work out for you. There's under no circumstances he had beat Cody Rhodes. I'm not saying he should have beat Cody. I'm saying he needs to stop being the guy who comes up with these plans and this shit just blows up in his face and he ends up getting pinned every week. He just has to stop being that fucking guy. But they won't stop letting him be that guy because that's his lot in life. His lot in life is to be the guy who gets kicked in his nuts. He is a putty from Power Rangers. He's Team Rocket. And who the fuck wants to sit and watch this, especially at the end of a 3-hour show? I don't give a fuck how good of a wrestler he is. There's no rhyme or even if he didn't win the match, he didn't win anything. So he just beat Cody Rhodes. He didn't win anything. So none of this shit matters anymore. The story that they're doing with Judgment Day is moving at a snail's pace. I can't take no more weeks of Finn Balor and Damian Priest arguing just to become friends again, just so they can argue again at the end of the show. I mean, come the fuck on. Get this. No, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Damian Priest at this point. Like, he's got the Money in the Bank briefcase, but yet is not following the title. He was so interested in being the champion when Finn Balor was there. Now Finn Balor's moved away from the title and Damian Priest moved away from the title. It's like, what? Shouldn't his main objective still be Seth Rollins? No? Okay. Sure, whatever. At least Dominic and Rhea, again, they have their own thing going on and they're doing just fine. Everybody else in Judgment Day, and then they're going to add JD McDonough. Okay. It seems that they're trying to build a War Games team featuring Judgment Day. And they're probably going to add JD McDonough and probably one other person to make it a Judgment Day team against a makeshift team of, I don't know, Cody and Kevin or whatever and a bunch of other people. We'll see. But something tells me they're going to do something at Survivor Series or War Games or something to for the Judgment Day, because they're the only faction that's still around. Other than that, you have Imperium? No, So it's got to be Judgment Day. So they're probably going to add 2 more members of Judgment Day, so there'll be a 5-man team. And wait a minute, a 5-man team plus Rhea is 6, but and then they'll have a makeshift team on the other side. Then they'll start breaking up Judgment Day. But I don't think that could last that long because Survivor Series is in November. That means you got 2 more months of this shit. Bro, I'm about ready to jump through a plate glass window like Marty Jannetty at this point, man. I fucking hate this show. This show sucks. Oh, my God. Chelsea Green, she's backstage. She's pitching a fit with Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce tells the story once again. Sonya Deville is hurt, and therefore she's probably going to have to give up these tag team titles. Chelsea Green says she's going to go to human resources because managers should not act the way that he's been acting, and they should not let him behave the way that he's been behaving. And then so Adam Pearce was like, look, what do you suggest? Because that's the way to solve a problem, is don't go to human resources. I will just do whatever you want to do. And her response is that she wants to have auditions for her tag team partner, which she's been doing on Twitter, and it's been very entertaining. So then KC Squared showed up. Haven't seen them in a month of Sundays. They said they want to be the top contenders once Chelsea finds her a partner. And then they're both beat up by Piper Niven, who just beats them up and then says, I'm your partner. I'm your partner. And Chelsea Green is like, you can put in an application. And she just took a belt and says, I'm your partner, and pushed Chelsea Green on. And Adam Pearce didn't say anything. Apparently you can strong arm a women's tag team title, and that's perfectly acceptable. that you cannot be on TV for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And when was the last time this bitch was on TV? And she could just walk up, snatch a belt, and it's hers. Great. Fantastic, man. Look, if you don't care, I don't care. But I did have something interesting for Chelsea Green. She did an interview where she says that she's not afraid anymore. And that's why her character has been so interesting. It's because she's just been doing her. Basically, she has been doing whatever she wants. And then she's asking for permission or apologizing later. She says, quote, "I just so badly wanted them to let me be me. Let me be my authentic self in the form of coming up with characters, coming up with my own promos and punchlines. I didn't get that freedom my first run. Maybe that's because when they gave me an inch, I didn't take the mile. This time, it was all raw. What's the worst that can happen? I'm released? I've had that happen. That's already happened. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid to try something ridiculous because the worst thing they could do is say, stop being so extra, let's reel it in, which they told me week after week, and I still do it. I still am the most. I didn't do it the first time. Now I'm realizing that I'm at this point in my career where they can tell me that I was wrong after I did it. And I fully support that idea. I fully support that if you don't like what you're told to do what you want anyway, and then listen to them bitch at you about it. But if you get over, they're wrong. And that was to Shawn Michaels. That's what he did. He went out there and he pretty much did whatever he wanted because, the live mic is in his hand. As long as you don't curse or violate any rules, so what? Do your thing. And then later on, just be like, okay, because you can do everything perfectly well and they still won't push you, still don't care about you, and you won't get over. So if you go out there and basically, not saying completely kick over break the rules, but bend those boundaries a little bit, in ways that help you out. And then once these things start to get over and they start to work, then you'll get more freedom, And a bunch of people have found success by doing that, by coming up with their own stuff off the cuff. And yes, you have to use some pre-approved lines and some of the stuff that's going to be written down somewhere. But for the most part, coming up with your own stuff and coming across as being authentic and doing a good job is how you get over. And so she's been doing a really good job here. No doubt she's going to make this team with Piper Niven work because she has comedic chops. It's just unfortunate that this is the way that we chose to crown a new tag team champion, is to just basically have Piper Niven bully her way into the title. Okay, I didn't know you could do that, but apparently you can, and Adam Pearce doesn't care enough to stop it, so it is what it is. All right, so Gunther and Imperium, they ate up about 40 minutes of the show, probably. Thereabouts, maybe not that much, but it felt like a lot. So Gunther came out there, and they got him doing cheap heat, which he's better than. We don't need Gunther being cheap heat, talking about the city or whatever. But he said that Winnipeg is the armpit of Canada. It's more so his wins are like the boogers of Canada. Is like Toronto, the dislocated shoulder of Canada. Nova Scotia is basically like the runny nose of Canada. So what about the Yukon? Is it like the pushed back hairline of Canada? Anyway, he said that he was impressed by Chad Gable's victory last week. And he's one of the WWE's finest athletes, but he's done more in 1 year than Chad Gable has done in his entire career. Chad Gable then shooshed him, interrupted, said that he was on the clock before, survived the 5-minute challenge. But this time, Gunther is the one on the clock because he's chasing history. Unfortunately for him, that he now has Chad Gable in the way of him breaking the record. So Chad Gable decided to have a match with Giovanni Vinci. I guess that was the planned match. At this point, Ludwig Kaiser got in the ring and decided to cut this promo on Maxine Dupree, which is very funny. He says that Giovanni Vinci is going to embarrass Chad Gable. That's like he embarrassed, being Ludwig Kaiser, embarrassed Otis. Then said that Maxine should surround herself with European elegance and that Alpha Academy is a sinking ship, but he has the ability to save her if she just takes his hand. But instead, Maxine smacked him in the face. And then this led to Chad Gable versus Giovanni Vinci. And Giovanni Vinci is one of the most bland. He's a very competent wrestler, but personality, nowhere to be found. I mean, I don't even get personality out of his matches. He comes across like a absolute 1980s work rate guy. Just match guy. That's it. Just match guy. And then he loses to Chad Gable. So Gunther is upset, refuses to let this thing end this way. And then he ended up challenging Otis because Otis was mocking him. I think he was gyrating or, oh yeah, humping in his direction or something like that. So Gunther had a match with Otis, and then he beat Otis, and he powerbombed Otis. This is a very strange thing because this crowd was shitty all night. Look, this show wasn't much to drive home about, but that powerbomb, you would think that would have got a big reaction. You know, Gunther powerbombed Otis, and it looked good. You know, it's probably the best looking powerbomb he's done in a long time. And Gunther wins. So he won the match. And then there was a short brawl before Imperium bailed the ring. Gunther, backstage, was upset with Kaiser and with Vinci. Vinci has been an embarrassment since they came to Monday Night Raw. And Kaiser has now found himself distracted by the women. What's up with that? Then Kaiser starts talking about going to Adam Pearce and getting this thing all settled out. But Gunther was like, nope, I'll do it. That's like everything. I have to do everything myself around here. If Chad Gable wants my Intercontinental title, he'll have to get it from me next week. So they set up the match, Gunther versus Chad Gable next week. Okay. Don't hate it. The Gunther match with Otis was all about the powerbomb. You'd have thought that would have got a great reaction, but it didn't because the crowd sucked. But it's also been a kind of drab show at this point, you know. It wasn't very good. It just wasn't a good show. It sucked. But Gunther was good. I want them to stop doing the cheap heat, though. Don't do the cheap heat with Gunther. That's not who his character is. Kaiser can do the cheap heat. If you want to have somebody talk about how terrible the city is, have Kaiser do it. Gunther should be strictly business, not, he's going to sit up here and crack jokes about, cities and stuff like that. That's not his character. That's not his character. Don't do that. But other than that, perfectly fine. I don't dislike this. I kind of had a fantasy booking idea in my head that there should be a third member of Alpha Academy and to match the third member of Imperium, of course. And I was just kind of in my mind, like, of course you don't want to always match because you want to give the heels a numeric advantage. But I'm sitting here like, who would be a good third member of Alpha Academy? And of course I instantly went to like, oh yeah, you got, NXT has all these guys that you could use. And then I was like, what about Shelton Benjamin? He would be a great member of Alpha Academy. He could be one of the professors, So that would be nice. If they just need a third person for like a 6-man tag or something. But it don't seem like they're going in that direction. It seems like they're going to try to give Chad Gable this match, have him lose this match, and then we move on. I don't see any reason why Chad Gable would win it. Chad Gable winning the Intercontinental title on Raw, breaking Gunther's streak. Boy, that talk about the book and flop of a decade. That would be it. But you could make a star with Chad Gable. Nah, it ain't gonna work, bro. Sorry. You gotta go with the hot hand. Gunther is building something here. He's building a legacy here. Can't take our time to put over the midget. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have to wait till the record's broken. Speaking of broken records, Drew McIntyre's back. He's still not a heel. This big nose son of a bitch, Triple H, refuses to turn Drew McIntyre heel. He's a coward. Triple H, your ticker ain't worth shit. You got a yellow streak running down your back a mile long. You are a coward. Why will you have refused to turn Drew McIntyre heel? Sir, you are a coward. Drew McIntyre is now being saddled with Matt Riddle, the hyper-talkative, porn star loving bro. Anyway. The Viking Raiders, Triple H's favorite act, had an open challenge to which Matt Riddle decided he was going to answer it. and then asked Drew McIntyre to be his partner. Drew McIntyre then said, if you can't find anybody else, I'll do it. And apparently this was earlier in the day. So here comes this point in time that Matt Riddle couldn't find anyone else. And so it's Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle versus the Viking Raiders. I didn't care about this because it features the Viking Raiders. So you already know, just like Judgment Day, they're on every episode of Raw. They lose every episode of Raw. Why are they here? I don't get it. What the fuck is the point of hiring these people? After the match, Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle are backstage. McIntyre's talking about the team name, calling themselves Glass Bro, which is a play on Glasgow, where Drew McIntyre is from. And they're talking about becoming tag team champions when they run into New Day. And New Day are wearing yacht clothes or boat clothes, carrying white steel chairs. And of course, everybody knows, if you've seen the video on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok of the big race brawl that they had in Montgomery, I don't even know what that was about. I get tired of watching niggas fight in TikTok videos, so I don't watch them. I did see the clip with the chair and all this kind of stuff, so I'm familiar with the reference that they're making here. But I'm tired of watching niggas do ignorant stuff on the internet. I'm just tired of it. So I didn't think it was funny. I was just kind of like, it's a reference to something that black people have been watching on Twitter for the past couple of days, which is nice. I guess if you get it, you get it. But to me, it's just, hey, can you reference something fucking positive? It's like people always want to unify over ignorant shit. I'm not watching that. I'm not watching no more fights, no more mass stealing videos. I'm not watching no more of that crap. Anyway, Kofi Kingston, on his hallowed birthday, his ears were accosted with two guys who are not even friends talking about being the tag team champions. And then this led to the New Day challenging them to a match next week where Drew McIntyre needs to kick Matt Riddle in the face. He needs to beat Matt Riddle's ass, or he needs to just walk away from him and say, this is stupid and it's a waste of my time. Drew McIntyre needs to turn heel. Why would you turn Nakamura? You should have turned Drew McIntyre. Who is booking this show? And why are you retarded? That was harsh language, but it's necessary. Triple H, he has a sponge where his heart used to be. Turn this man heel. Stop being scared. There's nothing bad that can happen. Heel Drew McIntyre cannot hurt you. It cannot be worse than stale Drew McIntyre right now. Have mercy. Next, Shinsuke Nakamura is in the ring with Michael Cole. They want to know why he did what he did. And his answer was simple. It was in Japanese. That's his gimmick, is that he's going to answer questions in Japanese. But then instantly he says, I want the world title. And it was like, oh, everybody forgot that Seth Rollins was the world champion. He's more like the super intercontinental champion. Anyway, he spoke some more Japanese before he was interrupted by Seth Rollins. Rollins says he's not hard to find. He stands out there in the ring every week. And he says that, Nakamura could have just asked. Then he says that the best way to get what he wants, which is revenge, is to give Nakamura what Nakamura wants. So he accepts his challenge, and then they shake hands. Nakamura whispers something to Rollins, made Rollins take his glasses off. He was like, what is this guy saying? And then he gets Kinshasa again and was left laying in the ring like a chump. Look, if you'd asked me last year, maybe 2 years ago, who my favorite wrestler on the roster was, I would have told you Seth Rollins. You ask me that question today, I would not say Seth Rollins. I still defend Seth Rollins. I do. But Lord have mercy. They have made him absolutely insufferable. He is insufferable. The clothes has already got me on the edge. I recoil at what he decides to wear in public. And he even had a conversation talking about there's nowhere I won't go with fashion. I'm like, when did this guy become such a fashion guy? Why is he all of a sudden so into fashion? I don't know. But this new persona for Seth Rollins is wearing on me. This babyface run is wearing on me. It's not quite working out. him being sort of this unbeatable, unstoppable champion. The crowd loves him, so that's a positive. But I don't think he's doing anything particularly interesting. I liked him better when he was the Monday Night Messiah. I like him better as a heel, I think. As a babyface, I just don't think he's got enough juice in there in order to make it work. He's a great in-ring worker. Always still enjoy his matches, and that's really what it was about. And I enjoyed his promo ability a couple of years ago. But now it's kind of like he doesn't really have much to say. He comes out, wearing women's clothes. And I don't know why he's so obsessed with fashion. He even started doing, he was even on GQ magazine saying there's nothing I won't do in fashion-wise. I'm like, oh my God. Just, I don't know what's the point? Like, what's the plan here? What's the end goal? For you to walk around in a Balenciaga mud pit? Like, is that the plan? For you to, what's the goal? What's the goal of this crap? I don't know. But he's getting a lot of attention for his outside wear, his attire, and not so much for his in-ring work anymore, which is a positive, if being honest, because he's always known as an in-ring guy. But now people are starting to pay more attention to stuff that he does, but it's polarizing. He's not considered cool. He's considered bizarre. He's eccentric. And, nobody understands why he started doing this stuff. He just started doing it. And I guess it's working out for him because it's getting him more attention than anything else he's done. But I don't know about this being a pay-per-view match. Nakamura, again, his career is on oxygen. His career is like one of these mob bosses in Casino, He's on like Darth Vader, like he's at the end of the road, Jack, I like Nakamura too. And I think that in 2018, 2019, this would have been a great match where Nakamura would have put in 100% effort, or at least 80% effort, and it would have been great. But now I can see Nakamura maybe putting in 65%, getting a decent match, and then calling it a day, and collecting a big fat check and going back surfing. And that's pretty much it, So, it's very unfortunate. The Miz cut a promo backstage saying he's better than LA Knight and that LA Knight still does not deserve a handshake from him. Says he's going to defeat an opponent next week that's bigger and better than any opponent LA Knight's ever defeated. And then he even teased that he might appear on SmackDown. The Miz got a nice little push this week where Ric Flair put him over, talking about how much he appreciates the Miz and how, the Miz is underappreciated, how the guy can do anything. He's very calm and collected and trustworthy. And I was like, wow, Ric Flair putting over the Miz? That's crazy. Hell, even Jim Cornette put over the Miz. His promo with against LA Knight. So people are starting to wake up. They're becoming mystified. Yeah, mystified. Get it? Mystified? Oh, come on, man. I had to watch this terrible show. You can give me a nice pun. Let me run with the pun real quick. All right. Anyway, Miz is going to be some kind of jobber and then going to act like LA Knight couldn't beat the jobber. Him popping over on SmackDown, okay, fine. I think they should save the match for the pay-per-view, though. Or if you want to do it on TV, fine. But I think you should probably wait and do it on pay-per-view, personally. So, okie dokie. The match everybody wanted to be the main event of the evening, and praise God that it wasn't. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. Oh my Jesus. Oh Jesus. Oh no, Lord. Their match in Saudi Arabia was better. Let's put it like that. This match, it was okay at best. At best, it was okay. At worst, it was sloppy. A lot of the stuff did not look very good, and I don't think they have good chemistry. I don't think it's working out. Like Trish had one match with Charlotte that's been better than both of her matches with Becky. And I think that speaks to how good Charlotte is, to how not to say that Becky's not good, but whoever is putting together these matches are not doing a good job. They're not doing the best they could. They're not bringing their best in this scenario. Then the match ended in a double count out, which of course pissed people off. They had to wait instead of doing this match at SummerSlam, they had to wait 2 extra weeks to see it. And then this feud has been going on since April. All right. This feud has been going on since it's been 4 months. It's been 4 months. Okay. This is ridiculous. Why is this feud still going on? Why will it not end? Triple H, what are you doing in this feud? All right. I said 2 weeks ago it's probably going to end in a cage match because, Becky Lynch mentioned she wants to have a cage match. So I figured that's what they were going to do. I didn't know we were going to have to wait 3 fucking weeks for it. And then is the cage match going to be at Payback? Is it going to be on Raw? We don't know. I just was like, oh my God. Oh my God. So then they did the big concession stand fights where Becky and Trish fought up the stairs and they fought all through the crowd and they got up to, the vendors, and then Zoe Stark appeared and beat up Trish. So, beat up Becky. I'm getting tired at this point. This is getting on my nerves. Then Adam Pearce, he's fed up with this. Said it's going to be a cage match because he doesn't want Zoe Stark interfering. Like she can't climb a cage. Like, does he know her childhood secrets that she doesn't know how to climb things? Because I'm pretty sure every cage match of the last 30 years have featured somebody getting in that cage somehow. Whether they're airlifted into it, they're cutting parts under the cage to get in. This shit don't mean nothing. They were probably better off creating a last man standing match or something. But Trish Stratus never worked a cage match because that's what she wants to do. So we're gonna have a cage match. Fine. I don't care. But everybody who had it in their mind that this was going to be the main event of the evening because you had to wait 2 extra weeks for it, had you fooled. Double count out. Had you fooled. Only one person that books women in any decent way, and it's Shawn Michaels at NXT. Crazy how Triple H also booked NXT and then decided that none of these women are worth a damn. So we're going to throw them in mid-card shit and none of it matters. Instead of letting them build something that matters. And then we're going to have a 4-month feud that only features at most 4 matches. There was Trish and Becky had the first match in Saudi. That was the best match they had so far. And then I think there was 2 Becky Lynch and Zoe Stark matches. And then this match. And then there's going to be the cage match. That's 5. Boy, in 4 months? Oh my God. No classic promos. No really good promos or nothing. It's all just been serviceable. Barely passing. C-grade stuff. And certainly not to the quality or the level of the women's division usually in WWE. It's very mid. It's super mid. It's mid as fuck. And since Becky Lynch is sort of seen as I guess you could say the veteran, because she's got more wrestling experience than Trish Stratus, despite the fact that Trish Stratus is a bigger star and been around longer. Becky is the actual worker in this thing. And it's been not good. So it's kind of falling on her shoulders. But I don't know. This Trish thing it's been kind of rocky since it came since it started, but it's really gotten to an unbearable point now. Maybe because this show was so long and I didn't care about anything and there was no energy for it. Even the big brawl, there was no energy. It didn't feel chaotic. It didn't feel like things are spilling out outside the ring and, we can't control these girls. What's going on here? It didn't feel like that. It just felt like, connecting the dots. We go over the top of the barricade. We fight here. We go up the stairs. We fight on the stairs. We go up. We fight there. We go up. We fight there. We go up. We fight here. We get to the back. We fight there. We run your head into this. Then I climb this thing. And then Zoe's going to show up and save me and yada, yada, yada. Like you're connecting dots. It doesn't feel like it's a wild brawl that Trish is trying to get away from, or that she's legitimately scared of Becky Lynch and she's trying to run away from her. It didn't feel like that. It felt like a walk-in brawl. So you had to be a little bit smarter. How could you have fixed this? You could have fixed this by having Becky Lynch grab like a chair or a weapon of some kind, and then Trish is running away from her, and then she runs up the stairs, and then Becky chases her up the stairs, swinging at her and all this kind of stuff. And then when she gets back there, maybe, she begs off, maybe have, Trish kick Becky in the leg to get the advantage. Then she tries to run away again. Like the whole idea of Trish trying to fight back doesn't seem to fit her character. And then you still could have had Zoe Stark save her at the end by meeting them up there. But I think it would have felt more chaotic and more out of control if Becky was pissed about Trish trying to flee and getting counted out. And then she is sort of like, okay, you want to get counted out? So the match is over. I can grab this chair and wrap it around your goddamn head. It probably would have felt a little bit more realistic at that point, where her frustration is boiling over. But them fighting on the stairs and everything, I was like, oh God, this couldn't be more mundane. And then the crowd didn't give a shit because I guess they sensed something was wrong and they were right. They were correct, as they usually are. All right, so this episode of Raw is miserable. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. I cannot stand what they're doing on Raw. I swear to Jesus, they need to do something different. They need to wave a magic wand and nobody from fucking Judgment Day appears on Raw at all. What would they do then? If there was a plane crash and everybody from Judgment Day got a hangnail and they can't make it to Raw that week, what would they do? What kind of show? What would the show look like if you couldn't just book it around the same 3 or 4 people every week? What would it look like? I wonder. I guess we will never know no time soon because they're probably building up to some Survivor Series War Game stuff. The Gunther Chad Gable Odyssey is okay. It's fine. JD McDonough and Finn Balor, they look like it's going to end up being a tag team. And perhaps that's going to be the first team that Kevin Owens has a tangle with. Seeing that Finn Balor might end up being a tag champion, which I don't think he's done yet. So that could be fun, I guess. I think he's done it in NXT. I don't think he's done it on the main roster. That could be interesting. Nakamura and Rollins, I like both guys, but it's bland. It's lacking the spice. It's lacking punch. It's lacking, it's lacking. It's lacking all up and through there. And nothing else on the show is interesting. No off-title feud is really like grabbing your attention and running with it right now. They don't even have a segment on the level of Miz and LA Knight to make you interested. It's just a bland, very Canadian episode of Monday Night Raw. It was boring. So, like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.